Hey everyone, welcome back to DemDMs. My name is Matt.
I'm Pandagus.
And I'm Fox Ghost.
Today we're going to be talking about how to formulate random encounter tables for your game. So if you're ready, let's slide on in.
So the easiest encounters that you can do are monster encounters. And so let's take the example for a forest. If you have low level players, a pack of wolves, they're a CR quarter. So, 3 or 4 of those should be a pretty good encounter for a level 1 party of 4 players.
I see you laughing over there, Panda. Stab it.
That's gonna kill someone.
Yeah, a certain elf.
Bard.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe not 4, maybe like 3, as long as everyone sticks together. But a monster encounter doesn't necessarily need to be combat related. It could be as simple as like maybe there's a small critter in the bushes and it startles the players are like, what's that? Is there something that's trying to sneak up on us? And it's just like a squirrel or something. Or it could be like a semi hostile event, as in like maybe your party spots a pack of boars. Maybe boars, they're not necessarily hostile right off the rip, but you mess with them and things can get ugly really fast. So you can also, and just be creative with what monsters you throw at them. Well, if your setting allows for it, that is. Forest is a pretty generic setting, so woodland creatures, would be the go-to, but I'm sure there's some other things you could throw in there to spice things up a little.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like the next major type that you can create for your games would be like event encounters, right? Random encounters. Things like they're bedding down for the night, and one of the players sees a shooting star cross over the sky, and maybe you reward that player with like inspiration or something as a boon for having been up and watching that. Things like there being a nymph that randomly comes out and brings one of the players into a Feywild portal that takes them briefly into the Feywild. Things that kind of bring up the mysticism or the breathability of the world to allow it to feel like things are happening outside of the story in the world that the players can still interact with, right?
Right.
And just try to be creative with it and maybe give some kind of incentive for your players to interact with those. It's not as always exciting as things like the monster encounters.
Right, and going along with fleshing out the world, the last type of random encounters that you can have are location encounters. So going with the woodland example, right, you can have a ancient ruins that's been buried under trees and vines and things, and that's a great opportunity to add some world building and maybe give a some kind of boon or insight into maybe a plot point or something like that.
Yeah, something that maybe expands upon the story of your game or the story of the setting, right? Because that's one of the things you'll find, like setting to setting, is that unless you show those differences somehow, it can always kind of feel like the same world. So you kind of want to maybe explore that a little bit, especially if it's something that your game's centered around exploring and searching through this world for something.
Yep.
All right.
And as well as your encounter should also fit the setting that you're currently in. I know that kind of goes without saying, but don't throw like, I don't know, a beholder in the middle of the woods. That just that doesn't make any sense.
Sure. And I guess to that, we have actually something that we've put together from one of my previous campaigns for random encounters that I think we're going to try to show you here, that'll maybe expand on that a little bit. So if we're ready, let's slide on over to that. All right. So like I said, this is something from my game early on in my campaign, where the party was going from one city to another, and I knew that they were going to cross through a couple different types of terrain, one being a swamp and the other plains in this case, and I wanted to have a set of random encounters for each different type of location, to kind of make it feel like they're moving through space, right? Like it's not all the same stuff. So, for the swamp section there, you'll notice that I have a lot of actual combat encounters. Some things that I just describe as, the name of the creature, like shambling mound, troll, whatever it is. And then mostly because of the fact that swamps, at least this one particularly, is not really something that a lot of people inhabit or, would inhabit. So it's not really something I wanted to do a couple of the other types with. It was more just the combat. But the last one there on the list is actually an NPC that, should they have gone through this encounter, which they did, they could go through a small skill challenge and end up befriending this NPC, and he would bestow upon them some healing potions that, because of the state that they were in, they actually sorely needed. But it kind of gave some difference to this location. The plains, I wanted to be a little bit more hospitable to their travel, so I added a couple more things that were more of the encounter, or in the location type as well as the event type. The first one there is actually something that I planned to happen that would actually be part of the main story. I just wasn't really particular where it would happen in the course of events, so I just wanted it to be kind of randomly set. Then obviously you have a couple more encounters, but then you have things like the traveling caravan, which is just a location that they could, for the first time really stop and maybe pick up a couple of items, as well as the roadside tavern where they could engage with different smaller NPCs and, have a little bit of a relaxing part of it, because up to that point they were kind of running from place to place. And the second to last one there, the Cursed Wishing Well, was actually a location that I designed to just kind of be something that they would randomly come across, with that had like a weird twist to it, right? So the thought was, the character goes up, drops a coin in, wishes in that well, they fall unconscious and have a dream of that wish being fulfilled. And because of that, their subconscious decides to stay in that dream, and they are locked in that dream state until something, either lesser restoration or something of equivalent nature, would come along and get them out of it. So just a cool little side thing that would happen. But you can see that these things, especially the encounters, the combat encounters, are based off of actually a D20 roll. In this case, how often they would occur and how often, is based off of how dangerous that area was. In this case, the swamp and the plains were equally as dangerous, but I kind of called for those encounter rolls a little bit more often during the swamp. So you just got to play around with it, come up with ideas that really can kind of expand upon the location that you're having these random encounters in, and have fun with it, and try to come up with things that aren't just, random bandit attacks all the time. Those can be fun, but try to come up with a couple different things, or maybe variations on that. Panda Ghost, you're getting ready to run your game shortly here, and I think you're coming up with a lot of random encounter tables to just have on hand for a lot of travel.
Right, and right. I plan on having quite a hefty random encounter table. One that, as you go through as you do a random encounter, it's then removed from the list, and then a new random encounter from the backlog is then added, so that we're never going to be repeating random encounters. It's always evolving and making the world feel more alive, right? As well as adding variants. and that's just something you really have to think about, especially in my game when you're running more of an open world, more of a sandboxy with major plot points interspersed throughout, right? Until eventually, your players catch wind of the actual main plot and go towards it, right? Or go away from it. Who knows?
Yeah, and I think, for your game, you're going to rely a little bit heavily, especially like you said early on, when the story hasn't really revealed itself yet, to kind of use those to explain it. And so, you have that set number, whatever that is, and then you have some off to the side. So should they get through any of those, you can just put them on. And then you're adding new ones to that side list. It's just, every time you think of them, right? And so, that also means like whenever, you get through a bit of travel or whatever, and somebody hasn't used the encounters you planned, if you're doing it more like me, where you have encounters planned location to location, you can reuse those because they haven't seen them, right? If they don't use them. Yep. So, definitely just keep that in mind and keep stuff in your back pocket to make it easier for you when you're coming up with these. I think just let us know down in the comments if you have any tips or tricks that you found when creating your own encounter tables. And then if you're a player, let us know what of the 3 types you find most fun. We'd love to hear from you and get some feedback. So let us know, and join us next time we slide into DemDMs. All right, guys, have a good one.
Bye. Thank you for watching the DemDMs podcast. We release a new video every Thursday. Feel free to continue the conversation in the comments down below. It really helps with the YouTube algorithm. Also, be sure to smite that like button, subscribe, and sneak attack the notification bell to ensure that you're up to date on all our new content.